three main markers that the hotel told us that they use that were good guideposts for us. So first, the hurricane gets named, and it got named a hurricane. That was a key marker of the severity. And then the next one was that Disney World closes, and then that the airport closes. And all three of those events happened in pretty quick succession.
Customer experience wisdom, a dash of travel talk. We've been cleared for takeoff.
Served outside and require a passport.
Unexpected, impromptu, emotionally raw. Those are three phrases that I anticipate will describe today's episode. This is not the episode we thought we'd be recording. Last Saturday, as I was putting the final touches on packing my equipment to create CX Passport Live at isolved's Connect 2024 in Orlando, I received an email that the event would need to be canceled due to the likely track of Hurricane Milton. The hurricane's track then forecasted between a Category 3 and 5 predicted passing directly over Orlando. The event location simply was no longer safe for attendees. With isolved as the sponsor for CX Passport Live and the sponsor for today's episode as well, I was impressed with the event planning leading up to the event. I became even more impressed when I saw the sincere concern for attendees and the expressions of disappointment from the isolved leadership team. Then, only 25 hours and 45 minutes later, I actually went back and calculated it, all attendees received an email announcing a new virtual expression of the event that would occur in a few weeks. That's service recovery at warp speed under intense, literal, life and death decision-making. Today, we get the chance to hear directly from isolved leaders Amberly Dressler, VP Corporate Marketing, along with earlier CX Passport guest, Celia Fleischaker, CMO. When we think of service recovery and customer experience, it's often in the mindset of an individual's experience. Well, what happens when something truly in the act of God category creates the need for service recovery on an event-wide scale? CX Passport travelers, this will be a semi-impromptu episode. We're recording this just days after this occurred. Expect a freewheeling, emotional, behind-the-scenes look at how a company, how a group of humans handle decision-making they never hoped they'd have to make. And fear not, y'all. While Celia's hit the first-class lounge before, we'll still get a chance to bring Amberly into the lounge and hearing about her great travel experiences as well. Amberly, welcome. And Celia, welcome back to CX Passport.
Thanks, Rick. Good to be here.
I'm glad to have you both here. Celia, you're coming to us today from
New York. I am in New York. Bright and sunny New York.
Love it. Yeah, bright and sunny, right? Yeah. We're going to have a lot of weather talk today, I bet.
Yeah.
And Amberly, where do I get you today?
I'm about an hour inland of San Diego in Temecula, California. Also bright and sunny.
Yeah, I was going to say, whenever you hear the word San Diego, great weather automatically tends to go with that. I'm not as familiar with Temecula, but I imagine that there's some just glorious days there as well. I'm coming, as y'all know, from the Dallas, Texas area. So we've got the country, at least the U.S. country, covered today. Mm-hmm. Y'all, I want to talk a little bit about, I certainly want to know and kind of reveal the curtain, pull it back of what happened in those moments. But there's a lot that happens before those moments, especially if you see service recovery happen and be delivered as well as I experienced it happening with isolved. Talk to me about what was it like the pre-planning, the thought of, okay, well, if there is a disruption, what sort of plans were in place already? I would imagine with the full hope that you never had to execute them, but what did that look like? What was pre-planning like when thinking of isolved Connect 2024?
A couple of things. One, if you've been in events or marketing over the last 5 years, you knew you needed a plan for every contingency with COVID right. and everything else. So there was always discussion about the what ifs. I think for us in particular, close to the event, we had Helene just a couple weeks before. Mm-hmm. We're headquartered in North Carolina, so we had a lot of people and their families impacted, and that's fresh in our minds, which probably impacted how quickly we responded and made decisions here. But just going in, do I have a line by line, here's what's going to happen if we cancel because of a hurricane? No, but there, you definitely know what has to be done to pivot. Everyone is steeped in experience with virtual events. And I think, and Amberly's really involved in like business continuity planning we do inside the organization and building those plans up. So you're always thinking about the what ifs and what we could do and ready to go with it. It's certainly not as baked as our execution plan for going forward with that live event, but yeah, it was good.
Amberly, did you experience anything like, was there any sort of feeling of, we've had COVID, like, Celia, I love that you mentioned that. We've had COVID, we've had a hurricane, but was there any sort of feeling when you were doing sort of the pre-planning of, we've already had that. We've had the hurricane. We don't have to worry nearly as much about this. We're doing this as an exercise. But was there the feeling of, maybe we won't need to pull the trigger on this?
On site, I would say once we made the decision, which I know we'll get into a little bit more, I think we all had feelings of the COVID era and having to move quickly and be agile and pivot overnight. We started using words like unprecedented again and pivot. We went back to the COVID vocabulary for sure. I would say prior to that, though, we wanted some level of virtual viewing. And so for the first time, we were going to plan on recording our general sessions to make them available after the fact. And so some of that mindset of the more hybrid approach was definitely already in our minds and in our plans.
Hey there, CX Passport travelers. I want to let you know about CX Passport Live. CX Passport Live helps brands amplify their event's impact with the power of live, in-person podcasting. Brands partner with CX Passport Live at their on-site event to help excite attendees, reward high-value customers, and convert potential customers. Bring a new level of energy and excitement to your event and amplify your brand's impact with CX Passport Live. Learn more at cxpassportlive.com. Now, back to the show. So that's good that it already was sort of moving that direction. So that I imagine made some of the execution elements of it later. And I think that's probably true of anything, right? Planning makes execution better. Is there a challenge in determining how deep to go with your planning? Celia, you mentioned the phrase, hey, we didn't do it as much as like the details when it came to the event itself. How do you balance that tension? How would you advise any other company walking into a future event of, hey, you've got a plan, but don't overdo it? What does that balance look like?
I think it's like a skeleton, right? You know what the possibilities are, whether it's something like a health crisis with COVID or a weather event, which seem to be more common these days. Like, what are the possibilities that could throw a wrench into those well thought out plans? And then getting that skeleton, here are the things we need to consider and the audiences we're working with, and then how would we take it forward? Again, it can't take away from all the event planning, but it was important to at least, like, I think, and it really, like, that the second that decision went made, we just went into execution, right? Like, okay, here's what we've got to do. And the team, I can't say enough about the team, just didn't miss a beat on it. And I was so impressed. And yeah, it was hard. I mean, you talked about raw emotions. I was talking this morning to my husband, I'm like, I'm not going to cry. It was a hard week, but people just eyes on what we had to do and keeping people safe. And we knew there wasn't a choice necessarily. This was the right thing to do.
Let's get right into that decision making. I would love for y'all to treat it almost like, tell me the story, set the stage, because I'm walking on this. I don't know. Where were you? Who was there? How were decisions made? Talk me through, that the tell that story, because I gotta imagine this is pretty intense.
It was, and I know Amberly will chime in. Like, we were on site. We had 5 of our team on site already. We were in Orlando at the Palms at the hotel. Our production crew was on site as well.
Wow.
And it was on Saturday. We got in Friday. Saturday morning, we were going through run a show. I mean, and we were psyched. We had a great run a show ready to go. And we were going through that. And we had seen out in the Gulf, there was a tropical storm, but it was a week away almost from, so you just, you don't know what's going to happen. But our CEO called and he said, hey, I'm seeing this thing out here in the Gulf, and how worried are you all? And at that point we were like, well, we're not it's saying next week, let's look at this. And then we sat down with hotel. They have an amazing security and safety team that is in touch with the Coast Guard and other people. And so we were getting briefings from them, and lots of conversations that day. Kept going with run of show and all the prep. Like, none of that could stop. Signage is going up. It looks phenomenal. We've got great pictures of it, being ready for people. But then we also started looking at people's arrivals. Okay. And we realized that half of our event, half the people were going to be on site by Sunday evening.
Okay.
And so the conference doesn't start till Monday night. So, but there's that balance of when you make that call, you don't want to, how much do you disrupt people?
Yeah, experienced the same thing in that we wanted to make it a decisive decision, which way we went. And just, I wanted to go back to a bit about the pre-planning, because Celia mentioned the team, and it wasn't, something when we're building our teams going, they must be agile, they must be resilient, and they must, work quickly under pressure. But it was like the team that we built, we're part of that pre-planning too, right? Because they were the team that was going to carry us through that everything that needed to be done. And like Celia said, in terms of the decision, a lot of times you get these comms, and I've written them several times over the years, right? Of we're in touch with local officials, and I can't express how true that was, right? Oh. Like the folks in the room were talking to us about spaghetti models, which we Googled quickly.
Wait, what's a spaghetti model? We've got to take it.
It's a crazy graphic about all the different ways this could go.
Oh my gosh. Well, I've just learned something new today.
They were in touch with the Coast Guard. We were getting first and secondhand information about this, but then where does the disruption live? Like, how much do you want folks to travel in only have to cancel? Or how much do you want folks to travel in only to have an abbreviated agenda and everybody has to rebook flights? Our team, as Celia mentioned, we had 5 on site. And when we were looking to get out Monday and Tuesday, it was very expensive. It was very stressful just for the 5 of us. And we couldn't imagine almost 950 people going through the same exercise.
That's okay. I definitely want to get to there, because even you almost buried the lead a little bit there, which I love. It actually kind of gives me a sense of the kind of the spirit that isolved approach that. It was, oh, wait, this would be a negative impact for them. It wasn't, oh, no, our event is canceled, woe is us, but rather look at the impact to the folks. I want to go back to that. I really, really do. But I also want to explore, there had to have been sort of not a cone of uncertainty, because I think that is sort of the term of hurricane world, but there had to be sort of a progression of, oh yeah, it's out there, to holy crap, this is really happening. Can you walk me through the feelings you were feeling as it was, okay, yeah, it's hanging out over in Quintana Roo down in Mexico. We don't have to worry about it, to, oh crap, this is real.
Yeah, and it progressed quickly over literally it was a few hours.
Okay.
At first it's like, Mark called him like, I think it's fine, we're days away, and then you talk more, and again, our leadership had been impacted some by Helene, and it was a very raw, like that was very fresh still, and everyone had said, the devastation, people did not realize it ahead of time, and so, and then you just get in your mindset, oh my gosh, what if we brought 1,000 of our best friends, our customers who are so important. And we've really built our brand on customer intimacy and customer experience. And this is not us. We set aside financials, set aside what this conference means from that perspective, and just look at the experience we'd be delivering, and potentially the situation we might put them in. And then that decision became pretty easy. And we knew that there is a chance, right? There is that uncertainty that it just kind of, I don't know, unfold, it's not the hurricane they expected. It just is a tropical storm. It goes and turns a different way and hits a different coast. But that was okay. We're okay with that because we knew we made the right decision for where it was projected to be.
Yeah.
And there were kind of three main markers that the hotel told us that they use that were good guideposts for us of like how it was escalating. They said first the hurricane gets named, right? And it had gotten named a tropical storm, but then when it got named a hurricane, that was like a key marker of like the severity. And then the next one was that Disney World closes and then that the airport closes. And all three of those events happened like in pretty quick succession over the next couple of days, reinforcing the decision. But we didn't have that information at the time, of course.
Yeah, because y'all actually made your call before Disney, right? Disney's call was after yours, yes?
By a couple of days. We made our late Saturday. And for the reason I talked about, there were hundreds of people getting on flights on Sunday, and we just didn't want that to happen.
I like that logic. Like we kind of, and listeners, right, viewers, we knew we were going to be kind of wide ranging and back and forth here, almost like a cone of uncertainty of the hurricane itself. The touching back to the pre-planning. Hey, Amberly, you're mentioning these three markers, and it wasn't just an impulsive. There were decisions based off of these markers. Now, one you didn't mention was the Waffle House Index. I don't know if they had closed yet or not, but that's the other one.
New one.
That's another one. It's the spaghetti model, and those that aren't familiar with the Waffle House Index around hurricanes or natural disasters, go Google that. It's actually something that FEMA pays attention to. So talk to me about the emotions. We've got the logics. The decision was there. I think there's some emotion around your concern and care for your customers. Actually, I'm not going to lead the witness, Your Honor. Tell me what it was like in that room. You're a circle of five. You've got folks on virtual conferences and the like as well. What were you feeling?
I think avoid eye contact so we don't cry. No, I did.
I believe it.
It's a hard call because the group in the room, the five that were on site for us at least, they've spent a year planning this event, and it's a labor of love to build these conferences. And I think, it's just because it was like, no, this can't happen. Okay, this is happening. Now we've got to go. And like I said earlier, it was like the emotion, like I think inside all of us, and we'll get to this, the hardest thing for me was flying out of Orlando, knowing we didn't do it was the weirdest feeling. But just in the room, people pivoted so quickly to, okay, how do we make this right? How do we get a conference off the ground? How do we still deliver on what we continuing egg credits that we promised all these HR people that they still need to earn?
Yeah, same. I thought about the loss for the people in the room. A lot of them had expanded roles, like it was maybe their baby for the first year. And so I thought about the loss of everyone around the room who had different, content tracks and just emotional investment in it and everything. But we really just, as soon as the decision was made, it was like a snap and we just executed and moved forward. It wasn't, like Celia said, for me until we got on the plane, I was looking out going, oh my goodness, we didn't deliver this, but now we're, I'm not sure if we mentioned to you, we were flying to Chicago to then pivot and record everything in a virtual studio. And earlier you had mentioned, within, I don't want to get the time wrong. I think you said 25 hours, we had announced the virtual offering. So we will have the full 2-day virtual Connect conference at the end of October, but the week after, so just within 48 hours, we delivered 30 live virtual trainings where folks joined. And so we had hundreds and hundreds of customers and partners still join the week of Connect so they could get their SHRM credits, APA credits rather, HRCI. So that was a huge pivot to still deliver on those the week of, and then pull on the virtual content at Connect at the end of the month.
Just on that, what was crazy, Rick, is they showed up. I wasn't sure, we're going to get these things done. And our attendance was over 100 per session. It was easily what it would have been on site. We were thrilled.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really good to see.
And the silver lining is now those 30 trainings can be accessible for those who weren't going to attend Connect in the first place, right? So we can open it up to our customers and partners so all of their peers can learn as well. And just, we were blown away. We were crossing our fingers for a couple dozen, to be quite honest. And then so to get hundreds and hundreds of really good feedback was just absolutely incredible.
want to go back to that execution because we've talked about the results of it, but those results don't just happen. You almost kind of made it, oh, and then it happened. I know there's a ton of work there, but we got to stop down. You already mentioned a flight to Chicago and sprinting out of an airport that is closing. I don't know how many first class lounges you had access to, but you got access to one today. Now, listeners and viewers, Celia already went through the first class lounge. So unless she's got a little surprise for us sneaking in here, I want to focus on Amberly today. So if you want to hear Celia's answers, go back to episode 160 and you'll get to hear how she treated the first class lounge. But Amberly, join us here in the first class lounge. We'll move quickly and have a little bit of fun. What is a dream travel location from your past?
So I don't need a passport to get there. And if I hop in the car now, I could probably be there in 8 to 9 hours if I don't make too many stops. But Lake Tahoe is my favorite place on earth. I spent my summers there with my grandparents. And if I want to get away, want to be rooted and just like connect with myself and my family, it's Lake Tahoe, and it always will be. I think I compare every place on earth to Lake Tahoe.
I can believe that in a heartbeat. I've only been there in winter and seen the pictures of summer, and my experience in winter is gorgeous, and I can imagine the non-winter time to be just spectacular. And a way, I like how you said, to be rooted. There's a lot of truth in just getting out into nature. What about going forward? What is a dream travel location you've not been to yet?
I have not been to Italy yet. I don't even have a particular city in mind. You can send me anywhere there and I'd be happy to go.
I think that's very true. Celia, have you been to Italy? I forget.
I have, yeah.
Yeah. And both Celia and I are getting a little sore in the neck from nodding when you said Italy. It's like, yes, go in a heartbeat. Well, one of the things that I love about Italy, and I'm sure Celia, you feel the same way, it's the food. So what is your favorite food?
It has to be Mexican food just across the board. It can be at a taco shop, a nice restaurant, even at home. This weekend, my kids had a bunch of friends over, made a taco bar, and it was a lot of fun, and it was really good, and it's got to be Mexican food.
Amberly, I believe there's been a screw up here because I don't recall getting my invitation to that taco bar that was at your house. And I'm feeling very sad because I am a fan of the taco bar for sure. Let's go the other direction, though. What is something you were forced to eat growing up, but you hated as a kid?
Meatloaf. I was raised by my grandma
Quick
and my
answer.
mom in the same household, and my grandma was of the generation that you had to have a clean plate. And when my mom was at work, grandma was in charge, and I can still kind of like taste it and imagine myself sitting at that kitchen table, not able to move until I eat all my meatloaf.
Oh, so now, Celia, isn't this kind of delightful to watch others go through that experience? I get it every episode.
Yeah.
Sorry for bringing that torture back to mind, Amberly, but hopefully you've recovered and focus on your Mexican food love, and that can be the way that you can recover from the meatloaf. We're gonna have to leave the first class lounge now. I'm curious, what is one travel item, not including your phone, not including your passport, that you will not leave home without?
This might be cheating because I have this emergency kit that always goes into the bag that I'm bringing on the airplane, and it has everything I could possibly need, like a Tide pen, chargers, my AirPods, Band-Aids, like a medicine cabinet. So I feel like I might be cheating, but it is one item that just always goes with me.
It has calming tea because I had some last week from the emergency bag.
Whenever I need to calm my CMO, I have a special packet for that.
Use peppermint, and she did. It was great.
I do travel with a travel kettle, though, too, and that was going to be my maybe number 2 because it's so nice to have.
Amberly, I don't know if y'all caught it there, but you actually caused me to snort laugh. So it was, I'm not going to isolate that audio. No one needs to hear it, but that's awesome. I too have a little travel bag that's my just automatic grab, but I don't include calming tea for my colleagues and for my CMOs that I'm around. And so I think you've one-upped the travel item, and I think that's absolutely brilliant. I promise that I have said I want to get to the execution of this. But the calming tea makes me want to go back to that for just a second. I want to, steep in the emotional aspect of this. You mentioned getting on the plane, and there is something true about once a decision's made, it's go mode. What was it like that? And I'm going to start with you, Amberly. I want both of y'all to answer this, but Amberly, what was it like that first solo quiet moment, the evening, the time that you went back to a hotel room or something? What was that like?
I would say that the plane was honestly the first time I think we
Oh,
had some time to ourselves aside
okay.
from sleep, but in that moment, it just felt like a sense of loss and grief that we weren't able to execute for our people heroes and our partners and our peers too, right? Like we're so emotionally invested in everybody's experience. And then kind of this sense of loss that you weren't able to execute on things as well. But I really think we were just in such execution mode and that we didn't really get that alone time until we sat on the plane. And then Celia was also in my same row. So,
So not really alone. Don't look, don't look, don't look. Yeah.
I wanted to make sure she heard the flight attendant say, "Ma'am, you have to put your laptop away." I was like, "Can you say that louder? My boss is over there."
The joys. Well, Celia, was that a similar experience or did you have that quiet? What was that like, that kind of first moment where you could really feel what this was?
Yeah, I think that Amberly's right. There was so much adrenaline once that decision was made, and the lists are flowing, the project plans are being built, all these shared docs flying around. I'll say we had amazing partners in the hotel and our production team that were right in there with us to help, and the broader team at isolved, like we never felt like we were on our own to make this happen, which was really nice as well. But it was like I don't know, I get on a plane and I snuggle in and I'm kind of by myself. I'm not the one like gabbing to my neighbor.
Amen.
Like, quick to put my headphones in. And but it was that it's quiet, obviously. The weather, it's very dreary out, it's pouring rain already. And it's just like, yeah, I mean, fairly long career, a lot of events, and I never just walked away from a site having not had the event. And you feel, it's a weird feeling. I think grief is a good way to describe it. Like you just feel like you failed in some ways, but you let people down at the same time you had to do it. It just was depressing.
Well, and I don't want, certainly we're not going to end there. Sometimes those words don't get expressed enough, that there actually is that feeling. In business, sometimes we don't allow feelings. It's just execution, right? And there's a reality of execution, but the reality is we're humans, and humans are the ones making the decisions. Humans are the ones having to go through this, and humans are the ones that have put everything into it, and then suddenly humans are the ones that are experiencing that sense of loss. And I like that y'all both brought the word grief into this. So let's do that, though. But I just talked about emotion, but let's talk about that execution, because there was very clearly a go action. So the decision's made. Boom. What happens next? How does it go from that to the execution that I've experienced on the customer, the media, the analyst side?
Well, Amberly is a comms machine. She can do so much other things, but I've never seen anyone, I said this to someone else, like someone who can think about our audience and write with feeling and authenticity about what we need to communicate was amazing, on top of just everything else she was managing last week. I think first for us, it was like, okay, who do we need to talk to? Like our employees, our customers, our analysts, our like who are all those people that need to be communicated with? And then anyone that knows events teams knows they're amazing when it comes to project management. Like that's what they do. And so the second, like, okay, this is the mission now. It's different, but this is our new mission. Let's go. And we just barricaded in a conference room at the hotel, all day, every day for that weekend and built it out. And at the same time, you had to execute as the plan was built. And it went pretty well. There were missteps, but not many. I didn't feel like.
Yeah, I agree. It was comms first, and then we wanted to figure out the content delivery. What were we going to deliver this week? What we were going to deliver in the virtual effect? And I have to say, like the contract side of it, if I'm going to do 3Cs, like the actual logistics, like did come last, right? It's how do we communicate with everyone? How do we deliver what we promised as best as possible? And then let's deal with contracts and, legal issues and everything as a third one, because we wanted to make sure we could still deliver and people knew what was happening.
Can you, Wow, my brain just froze there for a second. But it's because there's so much goodness that I'm hearing here. Let me ask about the communications part of it. Amberly, you heard Celia say, you're amazing at it. There's an actual kind of from brain to fingers on keyboard moment. How does that work for you in the sense of how are you trying to communicate a message that is factual, that is clear, that is logical, but has that appropriate balance of emotion that the customers will resonate with? What does that look like for you when you're going through the actual crafting of a message?
The intended audience, right? And just going through the emotions that they're going to have and empathizing with that. I started my career in journalism, so kind of the who, what, where, why, how is always top of mind for me. And so that helps, but I think we also just have a really key understanding of our audiences. We know our people heroes. They're not just nameless, faceless people. We actually, know them. We see them on the road at our people heroes tour locations. They're our friends and our people heroes and our partners too. And so communicating rather to hundreds and hundreds of customers and partners is a lot different than communicating to someone and a name. And so understanding their perspective is what makes it a lot easier.
I'm kind of recalling something that I said in the intro, where service recovery is usually about individuals. And then I say, but this is an act of God on a mass event scale. No, you just flipped it on its. You said, well, that's fine that it's a mass, but it's the individuals that I'm trying to write for. I'm visualizing an individual and I'm writing for that individual. So you absolutely flipped that. So yeah, mass event, act of God scale type thing, yet it's for that individual that is getting that impact. Let's actually go there. Let's close with that your customers now have had, what is this now, a week and a few days to react to this. You mentioned that there's been hundreds that have already joined the virtual. What are you hearing from your customers as far as feedback from the event's departure, how it was handled, all of that? What's been the customer reaction to this event?
It's mostly thank you, right? Like we weren't sure what it would be, but most when they heard the news, and also certainly when they saw what actually happened with the hurricane and when it hit, even before that, it was thank you for having our safety in mind. I was worried about packing, I was worried about traveling there, but I was still going to go. And they're like, you kind of took that decision away, made it easier on me. I don't know that we had anybody come back and say, I can't believe you're not people were very, very nice about the message and appreciative.
Did you really, have you had any one-on-one conversations with the customer coming out of this?
Yeah, one of our customers, hope she doesn't mind me naming her, we're pals, Jaylene Owen. She was actually traveling from Sitka, Alaska to Orlando. And so she had been texting, leading up to the event. And we had sent out a comms too saying, we're watching the weather. We'll be sure to notify you. And so she was beyond thankful to not have to make that really long journey from Alaska to Orlando. And she just sent really, really nice words of appreciation and how this was the overwhelming response from everyone. How can I help? And that was really, really great to see, from our customers, from our partners, from our analyst and influencer community, from our sidekicks, as we call our fellow isolved peers. It was just, how can I help? And that was really, really kind.
I'm glad that you brought in the individual story there, and Celia, hearing the story, just the spirit of thanks. I think that's a lesson for companies in general, right? We're talking about an event. We're talking about what we hope, the three of us, and I'm sure all of isolved hopes this is a once in a lifetime event. But there's a lesson here in that handled correctly, service recovery is going to generate greater thanks than perhaps the disappointment that was offered. And in this case, it's not, quote, isolved's fault or anything like that. When we talk about service recovery, right, there wasn't a mistake that was made there that had to be overcome, but just the disappointment being met of not having the event that was expected, the social, the interactions, the bringing people together, all of that handled correctly will result in things like you're describing of the thanks, and Amberly, the story of Jaylene just being so incredibly appreciative. And actually, I still hope to have Jaylene on CX Passport too. She was one of the stories that I can't wait to hear.
I know we didn't cover it, but we were able to go to Sitka and film her story. And so that was a great travel destination. Highly recommend it. Although Jaylene gave us like a VIP tour. So maybe she'll offer that to your listeners.
So little shout out for Jaylene, a little shout out for Sitka. Here we go. Well, Amberly, Celia, this has been eye-opening for me. It's been a different way of doing the episodes. I've certainly appreciated your willingness to be raw, your willingness to be open about not just what you did, but what you felt, the actual, the tears and the delight and the thanks and the joy and all that is there. How can folks who are listening now or watching now learn a little bit more both about you or isolved, and also specifically these events that are now being put in place? What's the right place for folks to go find more as they're hearing this episode?
My team would find me on Teams and in person if I didn't mention actually two websites, isolvedhcm.com and isolvedconnect.com.
Okay, great. And that's where folks can find that information. Now, what about the two of y'all? Celia, we certainly had your LinkedIn before, and I'll do that again. But how can folks find out a little bit more about you, your approach to customers, your approach to HR, your approach to customer experience in general?
Yeah, Rick, I mean, there's a lot going on, and we're certainly very active. Amberly and I are on LinkedIn and sharing a lot of the research that we do. But one of the, I'll say, fun things that happened recently, we launched a new book, Center the Pendulum.
Yeah.
Amberly is a co-author of this book, and it's all about the trials and tribulations of an HR leader. And it really does a nice job showcasing, one, what our people heroes go through in their organizations, but also how to approach making their lives better with technology and solutions. So I would say that's a fun way to learn more about what we do for people.
That's awesome. And Amberly, yes, I failed to say it. Congratulations on the release of the book, which is, let's see if I can do my Weatherman stuff. I'm trying to point backwards, but it's back there. I promise. I just can't get my finger right. I'll mention one thing that's kind of different about it, y'all, listeners and viewers here. It's this mix of fiction and fictional storytelling and real storytelling that actually, this isn't your traditional business book. I've had some fun flipping through this. So this is one that I would say, yeah, have a look. Celia, I'm glad you brought that into this, because that is an intriguing book that there's a lot of great lessons in there. Amberly, Celia, I've really enjoyed having y'all on the show. This is not, as I said in the beginning, not the episode we wanted to record, but I think it's the episode that needed to be recorded. And I'm glad that y'all were able to share your stories, share your feelings, and share some lessons for folks who, God forbid, may have to experience something like this in the future. So Amberly, Celia, thank you for being on CX Passport.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks for joining us this week on CX Passport. If you like today's episode, I have 3 quick next steps for you. Click subscribe on the CX Passport YouTube channel or your favorite podcast app. Next, leave a comment below the video or a review in your favorite podcast app so others can find and enjoy CX Passport too. Then head over to cxpassport.com for show notes and resources that can help you create tangible business results by delivering great customer experience. Until next time, I'm Rick Denton, and I believe the best meals are served outside and require a passport.